Plato's cave was never about ignorance, it was about fear. The prisoners weren't blind because they lacked eyes, they were blind because they were terrified of seeing. The fire behind them cast shapes on the wall, shadows that became their comfort, their order, their God. The truth wasn't hidden, it was avoided. The outsider is the one who turns, the one who dares to look behind the wall, the one who faces the light and doesn't run. That's why you've always seen what others can't, because you've never feared truth enough to lie to yourself. The crowd calls this madness. Plato called it philosophy. The Catharsians call it fire. Truth burns, it always has, always will. Plato showed it. When the freed prisoner steps out of the cave, his eyes hurt. The light sears, the truth overwhelms. Most crawl back to the wall, back to the safety of illusion. That's why most people cling to the system, the noise, the routines that numb them. They don't love lies, they fear truth. They know it will destroy everything they've built on comfort. But you were never built for comfort. You were built for clarity. That's why you could never drown in distraction, why false belonging suffocates you, why your rage never dies. Truth calls to you like flame calls to dry wood. No one chooses to be the outsider. The break chooses you. You saw something you weren't supposed to see. You lost the illusion early. Maybe it was betrayal, maybe grief, maybe just the unbearable awareness that the world is not what it claims to be. Whatever shattered you, that was the moment you turned toward the fire. Plato said the freed one must be dragged out of the cave. Truth is not enlightenment, it's exile. You didn't awaken gently, you were torn out of belonging, ripped from comfort, forced to see what others fear. That's why you walk alone now, because those who will sleep cannot follow. Plato's allegory wasn't theory, it was biography. He'd watched his teacher die for speaking truth. To those who live in lies, truth is violence. Tell a chained man he's free and he'll hate you. Show him the rope is loose and he'll tighten it himself. Truth exposes how small their gods are, how false their peace is. This is why the crowd defends illusions as if they're sacred. But the outsider doesn't swing truth like a sword. The outsider is truth, living proof that freedom exists. And that proof terrifies the chained. That's why your presence alone unsettles people. They sense you've seen what they fear to look at. They know you know. You feel rage not because you're bitter, but because you see. Rage is the side effect of sight in a world of blindness. You rage when others pretend not to notice corruption. You rage when they call obedience goodness. You rage when they defend the system that kills their own fire. Plato's freed one must return to the cave, but not to save the chained. Truth doesn't beg to be believed. He returns because fire can't stand still. You too have tried to speak what you saw, and you were met with mockery. It's the same pattern. The freed are always crucified by those still staring at shadows. The rage you carry isn't poison, it's prophecy. The chained call every freed one mad. Socrates mad, Diogenes mad, Epictetus delusional, Marcus Aurelius cold, Plato idealistic, and you? Weird, intense, extreme, too much. It's the same story, retold through centuries. The mad are simply those who have seen truth too clearly to pretend anymore. The world runs on illusion. Truth is interference. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to remind them what they fear. Seeing truth costs everything: comfort, belonging, peace. But it gives you one thing in return: freedom. That's why Plato called the freed one the philosopher, not the scholar, not the monk. The philosopher is simply the one who dares to see and endure what he sees. You've paid that price already. You've lost illusions. You've lost belonging. You've lost people who couldn't stand your fire. But what you gained cannot be lost: vision. The world cannot deceive you again. This is the mark of the Catharsian, the unchained, the unblinded, the one who burns among shadows. If you've ever felt punished for seeing too clearly, if you've ever been mad for speaking truth, if you've ever burned while others hid in comfort, you are Plato's freed prisoner. You're a Catharsian. Don't dim your sight for the blind. Don't explain fire to shadows. Don't apologize for your rage. You were never meant to fit in. You don't belong among placeholders. For those who see truth others fear, join the Catharsians today on Patreon. The Pythagorean path disciplines fire, train the eye that refuses illusion. Diogenes' barrel, defiance forged daily, stripe away shadows, mark fear. The Aurelius Council, the circle of the freed, leaders who burn among the blind. Join the Catharsians today on Patreon and reclaim your power as a Catharsian leader. Plato's cave is not only prison, it's a mirror. Every flicker on the wall reflects what the chained most want to believe. They don't look at the shadows to learn, they look to be comforted. That's why truth feels hostile. The moment a shadow breaks shape, the crowd panics. Their world is built on reflection, not reality. The outsider's curse is simple. You see the wall and the fire behind it at the same time. You know the difference. You know the light burns. You know the wall lies. And once you know, pretending becomes impossible. Plato described the first movement toward truth as a twist of the neck, just a turn, and yet it's agony. It's easier to stare forward with everyone else than to rotate toward the fire alone. You turned. Maybe once, maybe 100 times, but each time you lost something: friends, belonging, illusions. But each turn carved vision into you. Those who stay chained think freedom is distance. They don't understand its orientation. The direction you face defines you. To the chained, saying differently is betrayal. You didn't leave the tribe, you violated its religion. You broke their mirror by existing outside it. Every time you speak the obvious truth, they call you cruel. Every time you refuse illusion, they call you dangerous. They don't hate you for lying, they hate you for seeing. People don't fear darkness, they fear the first flicker of light that exposes it. Light means responsibility. Light forces choice. That's why they reject you. You're not frightening because you're harsh. You're frightening because you remove their excuses. You remind them that blindness is voluntary. They sense it the same way animals sense storms. When you enter a room, conversation shifts. The energy tightens. They laugh louder. They defend harder, all because you might say something true. Plato's freed prisoner doesn't return to applause, he returns to hostility. Truth doesn't integrate with illusion, it burns it. That's why your honesty isolates you. That's why small talk dies in your mouth. That's why the crowd keeps its distance. They don't want to be near what unmasks them. It's not personal, it's elemental. Fire cannot mingle with mist. You remember it, the instant when you looked at the world and saw through it. Nothing external changed, yet everything shattered. The cave didn't collapse, you did. That collapse was the birth of sight. It's the moment the catharsis begins. From then on, belonging becomes impossible because truth has taken residence inside you. You can smile, you can play the roles, but the fire watches from behind your eyes, judging every shadow. Most read Plato's cave as a metaphor for ignorance. It isn't. It's a warning about cowardice. The prisoners are not stupid, they are terrified. They saw what happened to the one who left. They know what truth costs. They'd rather worship the wall than walk into the light. Plato wasn't flattering philosophers, he was damning the crowd. He knew they would always choose the safety of lies over the agony of awakening. He also knew a few would refuse, and those few would carry civilization. To see is to carry weight. Every lie becomes visible, every manipulation glows red. You can no longer unsee it. Marcus Aurelius called the burden of reason. Diogenes called it freedom's fifth. Socrates called it the demon's voice. Epictetus called it discipline. All were describing the same thing, the cost of having eyes in a world that wants darkness. You feel it every day, the exhaustion of clarity. You could close your eyes, but the light would still burn behind them. The crowd thinks fire destroys. The outsider knows fire reveals. It doesn't exist to punish, it exists to show. Plato's freed one stands in sunlight, not because it's pleasant, but because it's real. Truth is not comfort, it is presence. You don't say to feel better. You say because you can't lie to yourself. That's the core of Catharsian discipline, to prefer reality even when it scars. If you've ever been punished for clarity, if you've ever felt your honesty empty a room, if you've ever watched people choose the wall over you, then you are Plato's freed man. You are a Catharsian leader. Don't hide your side. Don't dim your fire. Don't apologize for truth. Join the Catharsians today on Patreon for those who carry the burden of sight. The Pythagorean path, exercises in perception, train the eye that endures the light. Diogenes' beryl, defiance as purification, mock illusion, honor clarity. The Aurelius Council, leaders of the freed, fire bearers who turn sight into action. Join the Catharsians today on Patreon and reclaim your power as the leader you were always meant to be. Plato said the freed prisoner, once he sees the light, can never again live in the cave. That's the tragedy of awakening. Clarity doesn't give you home, it gives you distance. You begin to see the machinery behind the world, the ads, the ideologies, the rituals of belonging, all the flickers that keep the crowd distracted. They call it reality. You say it for what it is, theater for the chained. The distance between you and them is not pride, it's physics. Light expands, darkness cannot follow. You don't leave the cave by choice. The moment your eyes adjust to fire, you lose the ability to pretend. Every conversation that runs on illusion feels hollow. Every social ritual tastes like ash. They sense it too. They feel the fracture in you, the refusal to believe. It unnerves them. You become the silent mirror that reflects their avoidance. They call you distant, intense, arrogant. Plato wanted that when the freed one returns to the cave, the chained will mock him. They will say the light damaged his eyes. They will prefer blindness to proof. It still happens every day. People don't want your insight, they want your agreement. You stopped giving it though, that's why you stand apart. The outsider's presence is unsettling because it exposes fragility. You remind them that the comfort they worship can vanish with a question. Socrates, for example, asked one question and the city killed him. The freed are always punished for sight because seeing means no longer kneeling, because fire threatens every falsehood. Plato's cruelty was honesty. Most will never want truth. The cave is easier. The cave is comfort. Shadows ask for nothing but obedience. The outsider learns to stop dragging people toward the fire. You cannot rescue those who prefer blindness. The act of forcing sight turns you into what you escaped. So stop explaining, stop justifying, stop saving, start building in silence. That's when strength appears, not in shouting truth, but in embodying it. Once you've seen the light, you carry a version of it inside. It becomes a pulse, a quiet radiance that burns through delusion. You see it in lies, in relationships that run on pretense, in institutions addicted to comfort. You can't unsee it. You can't just switch it off. The constant awareness is exhausting, but it's also the source of your power. The freed people are not happier, they're awake. In a sleeping world, wakefulness is rebellion. Plato said that beyond the fire there is the sun, the source of truth itself. The freed one climbs until he can look upon it directly. The ascent is philosophy, but it's also madness. The higher you climb, the fewer companions you have. You realize that truth is not just light, it's silence. It offers no validation, no applause, only understanding, deep understanding. That's why most turn back. The light doesn't just love you, it transforms you. The outsider learns to live without loneliness, to stop craving approval, to walk the ridge between illumination and exile without complaint. Clarity is heavy because it removes illusions, cushioning. You feel everything raw, the injustice, the apathy, the ignorance, but you also see beauty the crowd misses, quiet integrity, rare honesty, the texture of real things. Seeing truth doesn't mean despising the world, it means perceiving its bones. It means refusing to hate what is broken, but also refusing to pretend it isn't. This balance is mastery. It's what separates the philosopher from the cynic, the Catharsian from the bitter, the leader from the crowd. The world won't thank you for saying it can't, but truth itself will. The reward is vision, pure, fierce, incorruptible, the kind that makes you unmovable when others panic, the kind that builds empires of integrity while the crowd still fights over shadows. That's why the Catharsian walks upright in exile. You don't need applause. You've seen the source. You carry its flame. If you've ever felt your sight isolate you, if you've ever sensed the crowd recoil from your clarity, if you've ever refused to close your eyes again, you are Plato's freed man. The world fears truth. You fear nothing. You're a Carthaginian. Walk into the light. Burn without apology. Join the Carthaginians today on Patreon. The Pythagorean path exercises in clear vision, training your eyes that never close. Diogenes' barrel, freedom by rejection, cast away illusion, leave us fire. The Aurelius Council, the circle of the sane, outsiders who lead through understanding. The cave is safety, the light is exile. The outsider always chooses light. Join the Catharsian today on Patreon and reclaim your suppressed power as a leader.